Hello all, welcome back again. In this video we will be seeing how to actually make an assembly of the crane hook assembly. As you can see on the screen, the section view of the assembly is provided to us with balloons following for the better understanding of the assembly. We also have a bill of material table. One represents the crane hook, the balloon representation, which is a little more easier for us to understand. So let's begin making this assembly using CATIA as the CAD tool. Under start we have assembly design workbench. So we are in that workbench. So first let us call the crane hook and then start fixing it in your workbench. We have the crane hook. No. Let me try to fix this and then proceed with the further assembling of components. Now I'd like to place the hook anchor at this location, as you can see, the second one. Again I'll be calling the hook anchor. Open. It comes on the screen and then we can move it using various options, any option whichever is flexible for you. Now this should be placed exactly on this, which is supposed to be located with respect to this face. As you can see, the top face under the section view. This is how you understand a section view. So first we know that the axis and axis should be exactly at the center. We also know that the base and the base should be at the same location, which is over here. So once you update the component or you do Control U, it auto places itself at that location. Now, if you want, you can also constrain the plane to plane axis as well, just so it does not move. You can do Control U, no issues with that. Now, the third one is a bush which is placed exactly at this location. So let's try to call the bush. I like to move it with using the other options. You can use various options provided in the software. This has to be located exactly in this one, and the bottom face of this should actually go only till here. So once I say update or Control U, it just directly places itself. As you can see, it inlines with the face. Now, we have a support plate as well. We know what a support plate is actually. So let us also get the support plate. There's a support plate here. Now, this is my support plate. I'd like to move it a little forward and then I'd flip it in Z direction. Now, in this I want this to be placed on this. As you can see, the support plate is placed here. So first I'd like to inline the axes. As you can see, I'd like to inline this axis with this axis first, and then I want the back face of this to be in coincident with the back face of this. In Control U should do the job. You can see the axis. You can repeat the same thing. Since there are two support plates, we require another one which goes onto the other side. I'd actually call it with positioning directly. Now with respect to this center and this center is okay. Now I'd like to coincide this back face with this one, like how we have seen earlier. Again update, it updates it. Now there is a support plate, there is an end bush which is in support with the support plate. So we can also call the end bush. Okay, I want this end bush to be in line with this axis. This is my first. Now I can move the body as I like, because I just need to know if it's exactly in line with it. Yes. So let me try to give the constraints saying, let me try to give the constraints saying this and this are in line with each other first. This face is supposed to be coincident on this face. So let's try to do that as well. Now, we also know that this axis and this axis also should be in line with each other, because we need to put bolts and nuts in the same place. So again, Control U will place the same thing should be done on the other side as well. So let's try to call the same component again. With respect to this, I would flip it. Now I want to move this body, and then now again try to give the constraints. The automatic constraints are not on, so I'm trying to give the constraints again. With respect to this, these holes also should match. This is the main one because we'll be placing bolts inside this, bolts with nuts, and then this should be coincident on this face. Again update, we'll create the. We have placed around 5 or 6 parts, as you can see, till end bush. There's a lock nut as well. Lock nuts are usually placed at the corner of this. So let me try to take the lock nut 1, and then place it at this location. Okay, it's over here. Let me try to move the part first, and then rotate it in my direction, and then again start giving the constraints. Now I can give it direct with respect to this, and then I need to give the back face. This face should be coincident on the back face of the lock nut. Again control U will keep it in the place. Same way I have another lock nut on this side because lock nut is one is of 2 quantity. So let's try to call the other one as well. Give it a name as 6, or it takes the 5 name only, so that's okay. You can automatic constraint creation, create it this way. Now let me try to give face to face coincident this face with this face. Control U will create the assembly constraint. This is how you give it till lock nut 1. Now there are plate spacers as well. As you can see, there are 3 plate spacers, 1, 2 and 3, which will be located 1, 2 and on the other side. So let me try to call them first. Let's say plate spacers. And now start placing them in line with this. Now we know that this should be coincident on this face. So automatically the constraint auto updates itself. You can see how it sits. We need 2 more of these. So let's call them as well. We need 2 more of the same. Again following the same concept, I'm calling the place spacer, and then I'm trying to give the axis in line with this. And then the coincident constraint. Control V. Let's try to give it on this side as well. The last one, we have 3 plates spacers. So I'd like to give the last one. And then coincident. It's the same process like we have followed for the other 2. This will be your plate spacers. Now we have washers 6 which are supposed to go to the plate spacers. So let's try to call the washers and try to place them exactly at the place location. Now I want this center in line with this one. Now you can see that it has to be coincident on the back face. So I'd like to give coincide constraint. That's a control view. Let's try to do that again because we need it for 3 other features. Let's continue to do so. You can use repeat, no problem. I don't have a pattern here, so I'm not using it. You can use actually repeated reuse pattern or repeated option, but since I have not done a pattern or anything, it's a little hard for me. If you have done a pattern, you can directly use it. It's actually very simple to do that way. Okay, the last one, last two, sorry. These are your washers. Okay, the next is to place lock nuts too at all these 6 locations. So let's try to do that. I cannot use reuse pattern for any of these components because the pattern is for the support plate and my constraint should be linked to the support plate and not to any other component. That is the reason I've been repeating the same thing a number of times. If you understood one, you can just simply fast forward it and proceed with the remaining constraints. The lock nut is actually supposed to be placed at this location. Control U. This should be done 6 times, so I'd be doing that right now. These are your lock nuts. Now there is lock nut 3 which is located over here as you can see. So I can place that as well. Directly call the component to the product and call it as lock nut 3. And then place it at the location in line with this. Now, I want this axis and this axis also to be in line with each other. So let me try to give an inline constraint with this as well as to that. Let me try to move it a little bit in Z direction. And then give constraints for this as well as with this. This is your lock nut 3. Now there are bolts as well as your nuts which we are supposed to give. So we can do that as well. We can start giving our nuts and bolts too. So let me take a bigger screen and then start working on it. Might be a little more easy. Let's call the bolts and give it in this feature. Starts here, ends here, onto the other side. Perfect. Let me try to move this. It's supposed to be onto the other side, yes, and then coincide it on this location. If there is a possibility of using reuse pattern here, so let me try to use reuse pattern with generated constraints of this with the pattern in this one, which is my end bush. The circular pattern, it automatically takes with respect to the constraint. As you can see, this is what we were trying to do earlier, which didn't work out. The same we can do it here as well. Again, I'm calling it with respect to this. I know what my pattern is supposed to be. My pattern, initial pattern, is actually the bottom one. So let me try to take this and then give the constraints whatever I'm supposed to give, and then I can use the reuse pattern as I like. I can use reuse pattern with generated constraints for this bolt with respect to the circular pattern of the body. Once I say OK, it applies. I think I have given plain constraint. That's probably why it's not taking. Let me delete this. Move the component for the further a little bit. Let me give face to face instead of giving plane to plane. I am giving it to this face, to this face. Control U. Now let's try to use the pattern. It's a little more easier that way. Reuse pattern for the bolt, generated constraints with the existing pattern. It creates the pattern. We'll just give it as pattern definition so we don't keep any link with it. Now there are similarly nuts you can give, 6 nuts are provided, you can give it the same way. I am not giving it to the pattern hole, so I have to do it 6 times again, but this is an easier choice for me. I'll need to flip this, z-axis rotation. Yes, and now I want the back face of this to be in line with this face. This is your matter. The same thing can be done again 6 times. So you can use reuse constraint and do it. Whenever you're using reuse constraint and you're trying to use generated constraints, then the constraints, whatever you're trying to give, will not have any constraints. You have to repeat and do the same thing again. So when you're getting generated constraints only, try to use the option. If you're not getting generated constraints, you can use it 3 times, or you can use repeat option, which we have, which reuse pattern which we have used. And you can give coincide. I do not want to complicate things. That is the reason I'm doing it this way. The same thing can be repeated onto the other side. This is how you do your crane hook assembly. You can also do your exploded views and stuff, which we'll be learning on a little later. If you have any doubts, please feel free to contact us. Our details are given in the description below. And if you have any queries, or if you're interested in learning the software also, you can contact us. The number and details are given in the description. The whole video of how to make them individually, or how these parts are made individually, are also in the playlist with the description. You can go and check the detailed tutorials of individual parts as well. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you.